Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Slow Flowers member meetup. We're struggling a little bit today because Karen Thornton, our boss, is playing in Las Vegas today. So Nisha and I are running this meeting. Hi, Nisha. Thanks for joining us. And as we're letting people in, I just want to say this is May. It's the middle of May. People are getting busy. We're going to have one more meetup this spring. It will be in June. And I'll talk about that at the end of the meeting. And then we're going to take the summer off because Fridays are hard for everyone. But I'm very, very grateful that our two amazing guests are with us today because their plates are full and Fridays aren't always good for them, but I'm really excited that we're going to put a focus on sort of a design preview of the Slow Flower Summit. So first of all, say hello to Xenia D'Ambrosi. Hi, Xenia.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
And I'll introduce you in a minute. And then TJ McGrath is coming to us from New Jersey. Hi, TJ.
Hi, morning or afternoon now.
Yeah, you guys are on Eastern time. So you've both agreed to talk a little bit about your design process and your mission and how you build your businesses and show us some flowers and kind of a sneak peek of what we might see at the Slow Flowers Summit. Xenia D'Ambrosi is the owner of Sweet Earth Co. She's the lead designer and a farmer florist, and her business is based in Pound Ridge, New York, which is just a few miles from where we're going to meet for the Slow Flowers Summit. And I just have to stop and say, every year when we have the Slow Flowers Summit, we really rely on sort of our local host and us, who's a Slow Flowers member. And I'm so grateful to you, Xenia, for you reached out right after we announced that we're coming to your backyard and offered to help, which has made it really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Super excited to be part of it.
Yes, we are too. So Xenia is originally a city girl. She found her calling amidst flower fields and gardens, kind of after a finance career. And she loves to sort of honor the history of generations of land stewardship and farming ingrained in her DNA through her family. Having her hands in the soil brought healing and ignited her passion for sustainable gardening and horticulture. And 10 years ago, in 2012, Xenia started Sweet Earth Co., specializing in growing specialty cut flowers and herbs and in garden and floral design and installation. So, Xenia, I'm so grateful that you're here. And I know at the summit, you'll be talking about cutting gardens and growing and designing cutting gardens. So, what do you want to tell us today? You want to tell us a little bit about Sweet Earth Co.? And
I did have a previous career in finance, corporate America. And it was back in 2010 that I started transitioning out of that. And again, it was due to change in lifestyle, dealing with health concerns, that connecting to the soil is what really healed me. And so it was through that I came to have a passion for agriculture and for gardening. And I started Sweet Earth Co. It started as a landscape design business. And I actually started with edible gardens with a focus on herbs. And then from there expanded to full landscapes with the mission to improve biodiversity, incorporate pollinator-friendly plants, native plants, and just mentor with clients to teach them and help them become better land stewards of their own properties. As a result of that, I started installing a lot of cutting gardens for clients. And then I realized that I had, my own property that was well suited for that. And I caught the flower growing bug. And from there, really started growing flowers in earnest. And I think that every year I add more and more rows to my cutting garden, which is now, I think, officially a micro farm. But I do that out of my home here in Pound Ridge. And so half of my business is still landscape design and installations and container gardens. And then the other half is flower farming, where those flowers are distributed through my bouquet subscription program, which starts today. Actually, my season starts today. And we have a spring, summer, and a dahlia share. So we go 23 weeks starting today. And then we also do weddings and events. And then the third pillar of my business is workshops and teaching, which is super important. It's just as important as the landscape and as the flower farming and events. And I hold a series of workshops all year long, starting with a vision board workshop in January, it's been growing and it's been fantastic. And it really sets the tone and the pace for my year. And then I do some herbalism classes, some garden planning and design classes, take a bit of a break in the summer, and then start up again with a wine and design series. And those are pretty much booked up the minute I put them on the shop.
That's so great. I love the wine and design as a kind of a way to reward yourself at the end of a long growing season.
This year, I also did a Mother's Day floral design workshop, and I'm finding that a lot of people are booking private design workshops as just a means of getting together with friends or celebrating birthdays. So workshops has really taken off on our end here.
When you talk about designing landscape design for clients, do you find that more and more of those clients want a cutting garden component to their residential landscape, or is that sort of a hybrid model?
No, I think they do, but I think what they don't really know that they want a cutting garden. What they say is they want flowers. And so I teach them about seasonality and about mixes of perennials and annuals, and that's how we can get to the concept of a cutting garden. And then some of them are incorporated into their foundation garden beds, and others have set corralled garden
devoted areas,
devoted cutting garden areas.
Yeah.
And then from there we go into, okay, now what do I do with these flowers? And we go into design classes from there.
I mean, it's so interesting that the floristry or floriculture and horticulture are kind of coming closer and closer together. And you're making that happen the way you interact with your landscape and garden and container clients.
I would say that I have clients that are garden design clients, that are workshop clients, that are CSA clients. It's the same person, and they just participate in all the different business lines that I have because they just want more flowers. And teaching people how to have their own cutting gardens doesn't mean that they're not going to buy flowers from me anymore. It just means that they've whet their appetite for it and they just want more.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're still going to be a CSA subscriber.
Oh yeah.
Even though you've taught them how to grow flowers. Right.
Because they're not going to get the same kind of flowers. I mean, for our cutting gardens here are, succession planted, and some of the flowers that we have are not necessarily some that are very easy for your home gardener to grow. Some are, but others are not.
Well, since you mentioned your CSA, can you talk a little bit about what is in the first week menu? So that's what I have recipe here,
making bouquets. So our CSA, we have 30 members for our spring CSA. And today they're getting a mix of specialty cut tulips and lilac. And I'm going to step back here.
While you're getting set up, let me just encourage people who have joined, please put your questions for Xenia and also TJ in the chat, and we'll try to feed them questions as there's a pause. I'm sorry, go ahead, Xenia.
So we have these beautiful lilac stems that we cut from our field, and we teach the customers how to care for them once they get them home and how to cut the stems. But we start with some structural pieces like the lilacs, and then we add in, really all it is this week is tulips. So we have some top lip tulips, some charming beauty. We have some renowned unique, and I give them a combination of tulips that are open at various stages. So really tight tulips, starting to open tulips, some that are a little more open, just so that they can, have some immediate gratification enjoying the open ones. And then all week long, there's a succession of other blooms that open. And So I would give them, maybe just one really open black parrot,
pretty,
but then add in black parrots that are super tight like this too.
So talk about that lilac. It's enormous. What variety is that?
And we, this is Angelique. Oops, which I just broke that one. So I'll usually put it right next to one that's just partially open so that they know what to expect.
You can't assume anything, right?
They usually get about 30 or so stems in their bouquet. So spring, our spring share, this is our first, so we'll have a couple of weeks of tulips and lilacs. We'll also have some spring ephemerals like Bleeding Heart. What else is going on out there? Our daffodils were a bit early this year, so they're not getting any of that, but irises will be part of the mix. Towards the end of the spring, CSA will be peonies. Our summer share is a mix of sun-loving annuals and perennials. I also, the way I plan my fields is, because I don't have that much space, all the space is kind of valuable. So the plants have to do, double or triple duty. So I do have a lot of herbs that I use both culinary, but also in bouquets and dry them for teas. I include them in the bouquets. I also have cutting annuals that are good for drying. Actually a mix of annuals and perennials that are good for drying. And that's what we have in our summer bouquets. As well as some nice ornamental grasses. And then our longest share is the dahlia season. And that we expanded this year to 9 weeks.
Wow, that's amazing.
We've expanded our dahlia field as well. I think we're going to be up near 900 or so plants in the ground this year.
Did you add vastly increase from what you had planted in 2021?
Yeah, so last year it was a little over 700.
Okay.
And the year before that it was about 500. And it's always, you can never have enough, but it's always dependent on, how they survive the storage
of the winter.
So they get about 30 stems.
That's beautiful.
It's a nice, healthy bouquet. And they're usually just, adding to this for next week as well. They usually have a very good vase life.
So how do you present those? Do you deliver them in a vase or are they wrapped?
So members come to the farm to pick up. And tulips like this and anything very delicate, I will wrap in craft paper. And they'll pick up, but other times, like our summer ones, I just put a rubber band on this and they just, there's buckets of downstairs where everything is displayed and they just come right in and picked up their bouquet and check off that they were here, and on they go. And so this year we offered pickups as usual on Friday or Saturday, but we also expanded to Tuesdays. We have a lot of people here. We had a lot of weekenders, and so that's why Fridays and Saturdays worked well for us. But now that so many people are working from home, they want their flowers, earlier in the week to last the whole week long. So they'll pick up on Tuesdays.
Well, I will just mention that I put your website in the chat, sweetearthco.com, and that's where I think it's worth looking at how Xenia has offered all of her collections and her CSA categories, because you've got everything up for the year already, right?
Yeah. I think right now we have some dahlia shares left, but everything else is almost pretty much fully subscribed. I start selling them in right after Thanksgiving. And I give a push for Christmas. I give a push for Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. And they're usually pretty much sold out by then.
Oh, it's so nice to go into the season mostly sold
subscribed,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. Because you are kind of a one-woman show. You do have some help, Xenia, don't you?
I do. So, I do, because I do landscaping, design and installation, I do have a lot of relationships with landscapers. And so I can bring in a team when I need to do any major overhauling out in the fields. But this year, seeding is on me, and succession planting is on me, harvesting. So I've pulled back on some of the garden maintenance work that I had been doing so that I could focus more time out in the fields. And fingers crossed I can manage it.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Fresh breath of spring. Do you want to talk a little bit about, and if you want to sit back down, it's fine too.
Sure.
Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the presentation that you're putting together for the summit? It will be focused on, I think, you're not teaching people how to flower farm. You're focusing on how to build a design component to your floral business, right?
So the plan had been to talk to people about adding flower growing. And so if I were speaking to floral designers, how to dabble in flower farming, if you will, to supplement and support their own design business.
Yes.
And so we'll talk about, how to choose what plants and what flowers to grow, mix of perennials and annuals, talk about focal flowers, high value add flowers, flowers that don't ship well, and just how to curate your garden so that it's supporting your business.
Well, it's your recipe, basically. It's your business model, right, Xenia?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I like to grow a lot of stuff that has a lot of texture and movement, and so we'll be talking about some some plants that I really like to grow and that are a little unusual. But for instance, specialty tulips are fantastic, and I love to grow them because I can dedicate the time to plant them in bulk and harvest in bulk and store them in bulk. But a floral designer may not have that opportunity. And so, maybe choose something else for your spring focal that can support your business. So we'll talk about that.
That's wonderful. I love it. Well, I think that the shift that we've been seeing, just even in the Slow Flowers forecast for our insight report that we put out in January, it was very much this intentionality of more and more home gardeners and florists wanting to know how to grow some component of a cutting garden. And, space is obviously an issue, but just about your conversation about your mentioning the tulip issue, that may not apply, but there might be some other spring crop like sweet peas that would be easier for someone to integrate into their a smaller footprint.
Right.
That's awesome. When you do a cutting garden design, oh my gosh, I think everybody fantasizes about having a cutting garden. So I love what you mentioned about integrating either flowers to cut into the existing landscape or a devoted cutting garden. And what is what are the considerations that people have to think about in having a devoted cutting garden in terms of it doesn't always look pretty. It could be kind of a messy space. Do you try to have them move it around sort of out of sight, or does it matter?
Well, really sighting it in full sun is the first priority. And then around where I live, we have to contend with deer amongst other wildlife. So it has to be properly fenced and secured. And then you decide what kind of investment do you want to make in perennials versus annuals. If you are, a spring and fall, but you travel in the summer. So that's how we curate your plantings and, your favorite colors. Sometimes we put in, just things that are very aromatic. We just figure out what it is that's really, the client is really passionate about. Is it Dutch iris? And then we have, 50 different varieties, plus some things that you can mix with that.
Right.
It could be a lot of fun.
Wow. That's great. Before we jump over to TJ, would you just talk a little bit about the Red Barn at Maple Grove Farm? Because
Sure.
you introduced us to this venue, and it's for day one of the summit, and it's remarkable. And you also grow flowers there. So describe what it is and what people can expect.
So it's a historical site, and the farm, it's a homestead. The owner lives on property, but there's also this beautiful event barn that he rents out, leases out, usually to kind of fundraisers and nonprofit organizations, but also for some smaller weddings and events. And I also I have some dedicated space there to grow flowers. I tend some of his gardens. There's also a vegetable farmer on property, and most of that's grown is donated to a community kitchen. So,
well, you took me to go see it last fall when I visited, and it's a stunning
it's
event
very
space.
like industrial inside. It's a modern industrial barn. It looks old-fashioned from the outside, but when you step in, it's a really cool space.
It is. It's going to be a great space to gather for our first day, to learn from you, to learn from TJ, to learn from Nicole Cordier, who, by the way, I didn't uninvite her today, but she does live in Hawaii, and it was going to be asking a lot of her to get up at 5 a.m. to join us. So we're going to record Nicole another time when it's a more polite time for her to get up. But the three of you will be demonstrating in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we're hoping to do this sort of floral takeover. And I'm excited about the space because we'll photograph that barn with the designs either in centerpieces or in what TJ is going to do, which we'll talk a little bit about, this sort of installation pieces, and then wrap up with a fun welcome cocktail party. So I'm excited.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for bringing that to making the connection. And it's in Bedford, New York, which is sort of where there are a lot of estates and historic properties. So it's got that picturesque.
Right. Open fields. And
yes.
all
Yeah.
that.
I love it. Great. Okay. Anybody, nobody's asking questions. So if anybody thinks of anything they want to know from Xenia, pop it in. We'll get her before we wrap up. And I think we're going to switch over to TJ now and get him on the screen. Thank you so much, Xenia. That was awesome.
My pleasure. Hey, TJ.
Hi.
Okay. We're going to get, TJ on the screen. How's that? Can y'all see him?
That's awful. I just moved up close. I need to move back.
All right, I'm going to introduce you a little bit. TJ McGrath is a good Slow Flowers friend. We've never met in person, but I think we first met kind of how, I meet a lot of you just on social media. TJ creates unique, fresh, modern floral designs that are available. I don't know. Are you still doing a subscription program, TJ? This might be an old bio.
Yeah, it's really limited this spring for several different reasons. I actually just had an inquiry for somebody wanting one in New York City, and I'm like,
no, because you're in New Jersey. And how far is that for you? You couldn't take a delivery to New York. It wouldn't pencil out, right?
Well, to put it this way, no, it wouldn't pencil out for me. I've priced it out because I have done one-offs into New York City. It is a $175 courier fee.
Got it. Yeah. You have to really, really not mind that expense.
Right.
They might as well just drive out and pick it up from you. So you're very much focused on doing one-on-one teaching and workshops now, as well as commissions. Is that correct? Would that be a fair way of describing it?
Yeah. And anything else that I can make a buck at. For example, on Tuesday, I did a walkthrough for the wedding that I have the day before Slow Flowers starts.
No pressure, no crunch time.
No. And then from there, I went to my bookkeeper's house. I just hired a bookkeeper to help me just do the reconciliation piece of stuff at the end of the month. And she created her own invoice for me to come and do garden consultation because she's hired a landscape designer. And she was like, but I feel like I don't really like anything that she's talking about. So would you just come and like talk me through my garden? So literally anything to make a buck, pretty much.
I think we're all there.
Like me now, so I go and do a lot of sustainable talking I'm starting to book a bunch of garden club sustainable conversations and demos, which is nice.
Well, that's really what you're talking about when you post on Instagram, and you have it seems like a very consistent schedule for what you share. Do you try to post a new design every day on Instagram?
Yes. I do.
That's amazing. That's just I guess that started out of COVID and having the time, and now you don't have the time, but you're still making it happen.
Right. Well, because it's like, while I was waiting for the dogs 2 mornings ago, I went in the garden and cut some azaleas, I literally made an arrangement and photographed it and put it on Instagram in less than 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel sorry for people who hate me that I'm posting every day, but sometimes I need to just get the creative thing off so I can get on with the rest of the day. Especially if it's a day where I'm going to be sitting in front of the computer all day. I want that kind of creative thing going.
Well, you don't overthink it then. And that's probably a good lesson for people.
Yeah. Yes. That's interesting that you say that. I have an ongoing conversation with a photographer who photographs flowers in Minnesota, and she does beautiful, beautiful work. And she kind of critiques sometimes my photography and the stuff, and she'll be like, well, the lighting was a little harsh in this one. And I'm like, I take that all in, and it's great. And I've learned so much from her. But I keep saying to her, I know, but like, if I woke up and put my feet on the floor and said, today I'm going to be perfect, I would never do anything. So.
Can I have that on a t-shirt, please? I love that. So TJ, at the Slow Flower Summit, you're going to give us 2 demonstrations. So let's just talk about what people can expect. I alluded a little bit to day 1 at Red Barn. So we're hoping that you'll teach foam-free, elevated, freestanding decor.
So sort of the way I work, and it's funny, I just had this, I don't ever promise anybody a color palette. It's all sort of market pick. My subscriptions are, it's what's available. I literally work with what's available. So as I was mentioning before, I'm going to come up and check out the space beforehand, but I don't really know the flowers that I'm going to be working with when I get there, right? So that will all sort of fall in line with how I just operate on a day-to-day basis. So that presentation will be based off of like, how do you talk to a client? How do you design something for a client that maybe has a particular vision that would require foam? Mm-hmm. and what are some of the alternatives, and how you make that happen? And just kind of, for me, the whole installation the end message will be, you could sell this if you could talk about it. Like, you have to be able to have that conversation with your client and understand, help them understand. For me, the slow flowers and sustainable movement only move forward if we keep talking.
Right. Well, it's great that you and Xenia can do a little site visit, because at least you'll get a sense of the architecture. You may, like you said, you won't have the flowers, but then you can think about the mechanics that you want to teach too.
Right. So it's, I want it to be something that the event florists or anybody, I like to go outside and hang ocean pouches from my pergola and decorate them because 1, it looks pretty on the gate, and 2, because I'm hoping that inspires people to see that there are these other alternatives. So, the idea is that everyone will sort of leave and be like, yeah, no, that is a concept that I feel comfortable talking about and selling as like a ceremony vision or a sweetheart backdrop or a whatever it is.
Well, since you brought up ocean pouches, I'm just going to, and I'm not promoting this because I've never even used it, but I did. This is the product. And TJ is are you the only spokesperson for
I am the only
pouches?
spokesperson, and I would like to, I'm the only brand ambassador, but I would make something very, very clear. It is not a paid partnership. I do that 100% because I believe in the product. as a great alternative for event florists who rely on foam to execute particular visions.
Great. Well, I would love them to give you a paid partnership, but maybe you'll grow into that.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to so we're building it up. We're building it up.
So I don't know if anyone else has used this, but I had a sample box of 8 pouches that I ordered after TJ promoted it, and they were in my garage. I hadn't used them, so I just went and opened it, and I'm going to send out 2. We're going to do for our giveaways today. I'm going to give 2 sets of 2. So Nisha's taking down everyone's name for our drawing. And I'll keep 4 for myself and promise to practice. But I know when I brought this up before we started the Zoom meeting, Xenia has some questions about it too. So I'm going to do you mind if I take Xenia off mute so she can kind of get into the conversation and we'll hear a little bit more about it?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Xenia.
Hi. So yeah, I received a couple in the mail as well. And I'm curious to try it for myself after watching how you demonstrated it on your reels. But my question is with respect to the type of stems that it's best for. So really kind of herbaceous or fleshy stems like tulips, how do they hold up in the ocean pouch, or ranunculus or anything like that?
So I will say this first and foremost: if you have never used it and you are using it for the first time for an event, that's very bad, because you need to test.
I will practice.
You need to practice first. I have had very good luck with tulips in it. I have had good luck with ranunculus in it, but I sort of use it, I think, a little bit differently than most. And I try to show it how I would actually use it as an event in an event. I show it for its holding capability, because in my mind, the mechanic that holds flowers the best enables the florist to use less product, create a visual that still is voluminous, which in the end equals more money in the florist's pocket. Because you're able to create something that looks this big without having to have 8 million flowers to get it to be that big. So the holding power of it is really kind of how I approach it. I approach it really the way I approach a hairpin. You stick something in a hairpin and it stays. You stick something in an ocean pouch and it stays. But folks like these 100 stem wedding arrangements, and ocean pouch is not somebody I saw on Instagram the other day was like, it's a new biodegradable floral foam, and I was like, no, it's not.
But
it's an alternative mechanic.
It's an alternative mechanic.
Okay.
And what is it filled with?
It's coconut core and some other secret ingredients, which are the trademark and patent pending, that I have no idea what those are. And I know that, this first generation is doing really, really well. So I will say this, it comes with instructions that say, it's ready to use and to design within like 5 to 10 minutes. And that is true. But because I like to try things out and understand them better, I have learned that, there seems to be this point of like, if I soak it for 4 hours, that's amazing. And if I'm using it in a hanging thing, I don't get a whole lot of dripping. But if I want it to not have a water source for an event the next day, and I'm going to use it designing on site, which is really what it's meant for, if it's not in some kind of a container that you can keep adding water to, I'll soak those overnight and arrive at the venue and put a tarp down, and you'll kind of see that at the barn. We're gonna do a piece. I'm gonna use them to create something hanging in that doorway.
That's so interesting, because I'm looking at the instructions right now, and it says you could hydrate in 3 to 4 minutes. So you've really pushed this technology much farther with the overnight soaking.
Yeah. Well, it's a brand new thing that is better for the environment, but everyone is using it differently. So my message has consistently been the same. If you are a designer who likes to have 100 stems in an arrangement, that's asking a lot of a product whose first and foremost capability, the hardest thing to get was the holding power.
Right.
I mean, like once you secured that, the ingredients inside are doing a pretty good job of keeping things hydrated. They're already working on how to improve that. But, 100 stems in a 6-inch vase are going to be all fighting for water.
Right. Right.
So
it's so interesting because Lori Polisky just asked a question about what the ocean pouch is made of. So you've kind of addressed that. And I guess there's nothing preventing anyone from cutting it open and just pouring the contents out and checking out the texture and material. Yeah. How do you determine when to use ocean pouch product versus Agrawal or moss or chicken wire? Because I think that's maybe what you're talking about, that some designs require a different mechanic.
Yes, 100%. So for me, I would, it depends on the vision, I guess, of say a hanging installation. Ideally, I would like to use ocean pouch for a hanging installation. I think it has a lot more flexibility. Agrawal, for example, will continue to lose water if it's not contained. If it's something that needs to be without a water source and hopefully will last a couple of days with just a little bit refreshing, Agrawal does retain more water. So, if it's in a vessel and I can do that, then I would probably choose to do Agrawal if it's got to, travel. What I have found works best is a combination of like all of the things. So
well, tell us about the mechanics and the arrangement behind you. I'm so tickled that you and Xenia both brought flowers that are so seasonal and of the moment. So what did you
So this is very sort of stereotypical of who I am. This is, with the exception of a few leftover ranunculus, this is exactly what's happening in my garden today.
Love the irises. They're amazing.
I love Dutch iris.
I'm obsessed with irises. I absolutely love them.
Same here.
And it smells like it's very spicy sort of smelling. Pardon me.
Oh, he's so popular.
Turn things on mute. But it's all my garden. It's some azalea. The only thing, well, it is technically my garden because the bridal wreath spirea, although it's planted on my neighbor's yard, it leans over the fence. So a little trim here.
Possession is 9/10 of the law, right?
Exactly. So I mean, this speaks to who I am whenever I'm kind of like coaching somebody, or trying to convince somebody about the benefits of locally grown flowers. Is, I've said this 1,000 times, by limiting myself, and I actually become even more limited just because I can't drive on highways. So even though when New Jersey is in its full garden state bliss, I am still limited. And I know it's sad.
You need a horse and buggy, man.
I need to make $1 million and just hire a driver who lives with us. But like, even
or get one of us to volunteer to come play with you for a day and drive you around.
Yeah. So, but I feel like, it's such I never want to make the same thing over and over again. And so the challenge of like working literally with just what was available in my garden today and the few ranunculus from last week's Mother's Day things that are still left and going, and still have it feel engaging and voluminous and textural, and all those things are like hard to accomplish sometimes when you're only working with like 3 varieties. And then I get criticized for not using a lot of not criticized, but I get asked a lot if I hate greenery because I don't use a lot of greenery. And here I'm highlighting my passion for greenery, but it's greenery that comes out of my yard that you can't buy at a wholesale florist.
Right.
This little touch of spirea and the honeysuckle, to me, are what bring that seasonality to it. For me, when you're working with all spring poppies and tulips and ranunculus, and then the only greenery you have is Israeli or Italian ruscus, it just kind of, for me, sort of makes it generic and rather that true celebration of what's happening in spring. So
I think that's a really good point. What I see about this design that I'm learning just by observing it, and I would love to have anyone else put their comments in the chat. the bearded irises, really, these heirloom varieties, they really have to have a lot of negative space around them and the stems appearing. So you really see the architecture of the flower. And I want to try that this year. I even like the little side bud, the lower bud on the left there. I guess it's on my right.
They both, so there's technically each bloom that is currently blooming is the very first bloom. These just opened yesterday. So there's 2 blooms below each to go.
Got it.
And it's interesting to have this conversation because I was having this conversation with a farmer friend of mine who's like, I'm thinking about growing irises for the market. And I was like, yes.
Don't get too excited.
Do it. I was like, listen, you price them even higher than peonies because they are better than peonies. But the issue is really like, I wouldn't necessarily send that bloom. If I didn't educate my client, and because this bloom is really only it's going to start to shrivel up tomorrow. Right. So if it's sitting in a client's home, they need to know to go and kind of like pull that out to help the other one go. So I'm like all excited about farmers who want to grow irises. And then I'm thinking, because then we have to have like a workshop on how to design effectively with iris, because it isn't like just putting in a peony that may just get bigger and bigger as the days come on to the event. This is going to really, I mean, when I design, I really I do a lot of like what Xenia was saying. I have some, there's different stages of bloom times happening in every design, but I'm very conscious of like, there's ones that are already pretty far out or closer to full on expiration. What is it going to mean to the arrangement when the client has to pull it out to, so I try really hard to not design something that when those first blooms that expire come out really changes the aesthetic of the design.
Well, in this case, would you cut just above the new iris bud, and it would change the scale of the design? But I think it would look really interesting to do that and see if that other bud opens.
Oh, it will open.
Yeah.
They will all open. Like they'll absolutely all open. And I considered that. This is a friend of mine's vase that it's like this big clunky green thing, and I didn't have lots of stuff. So I was like, irises, I'll go get those. I like to try to design to the scale of the vase. So I did sort of hem and haw about using it low. And I was like, not if I want this sort of garden thing. I think if I want to use it low or at the lip of the vase, I have to go much more negative, almost in a ikebana sort of style. But I'd already mechanicked my vase and that wasn't working. So,
Well, so to answer Lori Polisky's question, what is the mechanic inside that green vase? Do we have to guess?
Anybody guess?
Let's see, Lori, you want to guess? I'll take you off of mute.
Oh, I think it's chicken wire and a pin frog.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Who else has a guess? We hear chicken wire. We see chicken wire and pin frog. We see frog. I'm going to guess an ocean pouch with chicken wire over the top of it.
Nope.
Oh, curly willow.
It's a hairpin holder.
Okay. Just one hairpin frog, basically.
One hairpin. Yeah. So, and I differentiate between the hairpin and the pin frog because I mean, lots of people are like, oh, it's a frog. And I guess technically, yes, but this is a pin frog and I don't have a hairpin handy,
Because it's in the vase.
Because it's in the vase and the other ones are adjacent. With the hairpin, I don't need the chicken wire pillow. With a pin frog, unless it's just in a plaything that I'm going to photograph so I can get to emails and get on with business, I always include chicken wire underneath a pin frog if it's going out the door. The hairpin, I don't need to do that.
Yeah. And the hairpin isn't going to go out the door either because you want to keep it because of the cost, right?
Yeah. So exactly. That's one of the reasons why I only offer a subscription in very limited one-offs. I'm not going to, I don't want to compromise my mechanics for a sale. So, I currently am talking to a customer who wants one $400 arrangement the day before Slow Flowers as well.
Okay. Well, gotta make some money while you can, right?
Right. Well, so I'm working on a big wedding and now I have this one arrangement, but she like it is again, it's all conversation. She was like, all right, I spoke to my husband, I can deal with the $170 courier fee. This is the arrangement I want. And I was like, I'm sure you do. That is my most popular arrangement on Instagram, oddly enough. And you can't have it because that is 2 weeks ago in spring when blooming branches and lilac and all the things that make spring spring were happening. And they are not happening on June 25th.
So have you persuaded the client to just trust you, or are you having to make other promises, which I know you don't like to do?
No, I don't. I do not make any promises to anybody. So I'm waiting to hear back from her. I was like, I can absolutely do something that has the same feel, the same sort of vibe, the same color palette. If it's the color palette, it's actually the same color palette I'm hoping to be working with for this event. So I'm just waiting to hear back. But it's like, I know florists who would have been like, yeah, okay, because it's a $500 sale, $400 to $500 sale, whatever it is, and then struggle to find tulips and then just, I don't want that stress. I can't, I'm way too old for that kind of stress. like, yes, you can have an arrangement of mine at your baby shower. And yes, you can have it if you agree that, you're just going to be happy when it comes.
I'm going to give you something beautiful.
Yeah.
One more mechanic question, and then I want to shift gears a little bit. Do you have an alternative for the putty? Because in this case, Lori says her wholesaler is out of it. So I guess there's a supply shortage of the florist putty as well.
Right. So my only alternative to that is really trying to find, like, this hairpin is actually sitting in this vase, does this into the foot. So the hairpin is sitting all the way.
It's wedged in.
It's kind of wedged in. If you're using a pin frog and you're going to put chicken wire on it, you can use more chicken wire so the chicken and taped across so the chicken wire is helping hold. But no, I don't have a better or a different alternative. I'm not ready to like Gorilla Glue any of my
beautiful
any one phase.
Well, if anyone else has a suggestion for Lori, put it in the chat. And then I wanted to ask you, because I'm very excited that you're going to speak at the Slow Flowers Summit and you're going to do 2 presentations. We talked about the installation. You're also going to do a large scale sort of vase arrangement on day 2, which will be awesome. And hopefully you'll be able to use a lot of flowers that are grown at Stone Barn Center, which will again be like responding to the moment. Right. And then you have something coming up with our good friend Becky Feasby of Prairie Girl Flowers. And I just want to have you give a little moment to tell people about the Sustainable Flowers Project and what's coming up, because it'll be in the US instead of Canada. And I'll put the link in our chat for people to have that information.
Sure, thank you. So that is, Becky and I started talking about that after I was at her Sustainable Flowers workshop in Calgary last year. She wanted to see if I'd be interested in taking it on the road with her. And I said, yes. And I said, but I think we should really, of course it's Becky, she was like, we have to address every single issue. And I said, well, we don't have a week.
We have to solve world peace in 2 days.
Exactly, in 2 days. So we've come up with a really fantastic, amazing, stellar group of presenters. Shane Connolly, Ingrid from Tin Can Studios, and Amber Tam, who is a farmer activist in New York City. It is being hosted at Jardin de Buis, which is a private residence here in New Jersey. I call it heaven because it is. And it is really just 3 days of sort of learning, but sharing and understanding. The whole thing opens up on Sunday with the folks at Jardin because they are I always get this word wrong. They are soil regeneratorists. They regenerate.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So, but they mostly do it on big sort of corporate campuses. So, and they're really super, super smart and super passionate about, composting and compost tea and all these different things. They have rehabbed the soil for the trees. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Lincoln Center, but there's those big trees in those big boxes and they were dying and they called them in.
Wow. So they're like commercial, they work on the commercial level, but they also have this beautiful estate garden, right?
Yeah, I mean, they do, like, she also designs, she's a landscape architect, and she has lots of gardens that she has designed and continues to design. But they also do things too that are much more in the research aspect of it as well. So they will kick it off with this whole concept of like soil to vase. So it really is, geared toward designers, farmers, flower florists, anybody who wants to have a better understanding of, what goes into growing a flower. And then we're also going to, address all the social and environmental issues just as best as we can.
I love it. And this is in September in New Jersey.
Yes.
So check it out. And I'm not sure I can get there, but I'm going to try. Looks like a fabulous lineup.
You guys, like, one, I'm mildly entertaining on a computer. I'm much more fun in person. So you'll also come to see the flowers. But I call it heaven because it is, you instantly pull into the driveway and you are inspired. Becky and Shane were talking about it, and he's like, and it's true. As florists, we need to feed our creativity through inspiration. And you pull into the driveway and you're like, oh my God, I want to do a massive installation over here on this beautiful brick wall to accent this. And then you go into the orangery and you're like, I don't need to do that. I just want to do one beautiful arrangement next to that window, next to that bust of David. And with all that, like, it's just, inspiration is endless.
I am a big fan or big believer in beautiful venues. So I'm excited for you. It's just to bring it back to the summit. I think we're going to have inspirational venues, a little bit more rural and rustic, and just, excellent food and excellent teachers. And I'm just glad there's a lot of choices for people. So I hope that people check out your event in September, TJ, but I'm glad you're going to be with Xenia and me. And
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Like, I've been pounding the calendar. Get here.
You have. I'm going to take Xenia off mute. Xenia, do you want to jump in and add anything to what you're planning for the summit, how you're getting ready for it?
Well, my plan started back in, November when I was planning the fields. And so in anticipation of the summit, I've planted heavy on things like delphinium, which I'm hoping will be ready for TJ at the summit. Let's see, what else do I have out there? Every year I also kind of, pick a muse, and this year it was blue flowers. And so TJ, whatever it is, it's going to be blue.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Oh, that's going to look.
Because as a florist, we often, you get that client who's like, and I want like blue, like touches of blue. And you're like, well, there's technically like 4 flowers that are blue, and everything else is painted or dyed or terrible. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really amazing to like work with a blue palette would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm excited. I know there's a few people on the call today who are coming, and I know it's not everybody can make it, but we're going to have a great time. We already have about 100 people registered. So we have about 25 more openings, and it'll fill up. Knowing human nature, it will happen. And that's just like 6 weeks away. So I'm so excited that you both are going to be there. And yes, Stacy Lee, I know peony season, or you'd be there. I guess I'm going to have to pick a different month for you to come to a summit. So that's okay. But speaking of wrapping up here, Nisha's going to do a drawing from those of you who attended. We have a few giveaways. I mentioned two folks are going to get a double set of ocean pouches, and I think you have to for sure post it and tag Slow Flowers Society and TJ so he can see what you've designed with. And and ocean pouch, right? And I think that I'll share that information too when I send these out. And American Flowers Week is coming up. You can see right there. And this is a roll of labels for people to use on their CSAs and bouquets. So we'll send one of those out. So that'll be 3 giveaways. So hopefully we always have good giveaways. So hopefully one of you will win that.
Mhm.
And then we are going to have a wonderful meetup in June 10th. It's going to be Shannon Algier coming to us live from Stone Barn Center. So that will be another way to kind of get people pumped up about the summit and share a sneak peek. And for those people who can't attend the summit, they'll at least get a little peek of what's happening at the Arts and Ecology Lab, which Shannon is the director of at Stone Barn Center. So that'll be coming up on June 10th. And then as I said, we'll take July and August off. I'm always open to suggestions for topics. So for those of you who are on today, please shoot me a note. If you have a suggestion, I'm already planning one for September, which will be a collection of Slow Flowers members who are florists or farmers who've opened this year new retail spaces. There's at least 4 or 5 who are, which is sort of counter trend. So I really want to hear from them on why they added retail as a facet to their business. So we're going to do that in September. Anyway, thank you all so much. Thank you, Nisha, for helping me today. And we got through this without our fearless leader, Karen, here to manage it. So please tell her I did a good job. Xenia, thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see you. Take care, TJ. Yeah, thank you, TJ.
Thank you, everyone.
Good luck this weekend, and we'll see you next month.